First item on the agenda is the approval of the July 2018 summary of minutes.
I would move approval of the, what was it,
July 2018 minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of continuances and withdrawals, which are on the green sheet in front of you. If we have one continuance and one withdrawal. I have a motion on those.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the continuances and withdrawals are approved. And take a second to make sure I mark them off. You may have these already been taken off the agenda.
What's that?
The continuances and withdrawals. I was just looking for them on the.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the executive director's report. Jenny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Bob Randall regrets that he cannot be here this morning. He is at Colorado Water Congress in the mountains, which is an annual meeting widely attended by folks in water. This week is the Colorado Oil and Gas Association's also their annual meeting, which I'm attending as I'm able to. And so lots of interesting discussions going on there about the relationships between oil and gas and local communities and so forth. With that, Madam Chair, that's all I have for the executive directors. If you'd like, I can move on to division director.
Director, yes.
First of all, I want to kind of circle the wagons on the discussion on bonding that we had last time. We have been running the numbers, and the numbers aren't coming in really any higher, or not much higher or any higher than inflation. So right now, we're looking at business as usual with those new numbers within our model. But in the long run, we needed to do some assessments and consider our options. Jim Stark, who, as you know, is the program director for coal, went to the Interstate Mining Compact Commission annual meeting in Santa Fe week before last, I think, and wanted to talk to other states about, gosh, this is a big deal. What are you guys doing? And turns out they're not doing much. So in the interest of Colorado not being an island unto itself with this, we really just want to very carefully look at our options going forward. And do everything we can to avoid anything that's remotely draconian when it comes to those increases. But right now, it doesn't look like we're seeing any difference the way the numbers are coming in. So right now, we're business as usual. We will keep you apprised. Because OSM is moving forward with this, and that does affect the coal program, not minerals, but coal. It would, I think, maybe an informational session, just to the extent that this conversation will be occurring, would be good. And Jared is willing to do that for us. I think we're looking at the September meeting. Russ will be in Scotland, and we have a very light agenda next month. So that would be a really good time to just learn about this, just for the sake of conversations going forward, if you agree, if that's of interest to you. Because it's complicated. Yeah. I mean, I don't fully understand it. So I too will benefit from the presentation. So thanks to Jared for that. We'll plan on that then with your blessing at the September meeting. Okay. We will be coming to you also with rule changes. As you know, we passed a bill on limited impact mining for construction materials, that one-time deal, just to make it more streamlined and easy. We need rules now to back up the statute. Also, rules on custom mills to sort of clarify jurisdictional issues there. And then also notice and signage. Then, if you recall, in some of our hearings over the last year or so, we've had some questions about adequate signage, and so we'd like to shore that up. There's a little bit more housekeeping than that, but But those are the sort of the big ticket items. And then last, as you know, Michael Cunningham was promoted to senior, and that opened up a vacancy in the minerals program. And Russ has hired Patrick Lemberg. Well, Patrick, want to stand up and meet the board? This is Patrick. Patrick has a couple degrees, bachelor's and master's in geology and environmental sciences, I believe, from University of Utah, and 20 years experience as a geologist. And we are in sore need of a good geologist on our minerals team. So not that we don't already have expertise, but someone solidly there will be a welcomed addition to the team. And that's all I have, Madam Chair, unless you have any questions or comments.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, let's move to the consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda, Western Gravel and Arthur Corona. Does the board have any questions for the division on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as outlined.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the consent agenda passes. Okay, I'll call item number 5, enforcement hearing, Carl Nyquist, file number M 2008-078. Anyone who plans to testify in this matter, can you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth? Thank you.
Okay, they're in black and white.
Thank you.
Good morning, this is Amy Eschberger with the division presenting agenda item number 5 for the West Farm Pit. Okay. Shall I start over? Okay. I'll just start over. Good morning, this is Amy Eschberger with the division presenting agenda item number 5 for the West Farm Pit. Permit number M 2008-078, permitted by Prowers Aggregate Operators, LLC. This is an enforcement hearing for consideration of possible violations, civil penalties, cease and desist order, and corrective actions for failure to minimize disturbances to the prevailing hydrologic balance, failure to first obtain a reclamation permit from the border office prior to engaging in a new operation, and failure to comply with the conditions of an order, permit, or regulation. And before I begin my presentation, I just wanted to inform the board that the operator is present for the hearing. So just some general information for the site. The West Farm Pit operates under a 112 construction materials permit to mine sand and gravel in Prowers County within an approved permit area of 233.4 acres. The approved post-mine land use for the site is developed water resources, and the division currently holds a reclamation bond in the amount of $575,000. The slide 3 shows the location of the West Farm Pit just east of the city of Lamar and south of the Arkansas River. Slide 4 shows a closer view of the West Farm Pit and its approved permit area, which is outlined in red. The site is situated just north of Prowers County Road HH.5 on farmland owned by the permittee. Slide 5 shows the approved mining plan map, which was last revised in 2015 with technical revision number 4. I know this is a busy map, so I'll just point out a few noteworthy features. The approved permit boundary is outlined in red, and the site will be mined in 2 main cells, the north mining area and the south mining area, and these are separated by an existing irrigation lateral and agricultural road. The 2 main cells are comprised of a total of 18 mining phases. The site operates under a phased bond approach, where the bond posted covers disturbances within specified mining phases, and the operator must notify the division prior to opening up new phases so the bond can be reevaluated. The operation is currently authorized to mine phases 1 through 4, which is outlined in blue on the map, and to disturb phases 13 through 18 for stockpiling and material processing activities, which are indicated in yellow on the map. Any questions so far? I know I'm moving through it kind of fast. Okay. Slide 6 begins the chronology of events leading to the possible violations cited by division staff. On June 11th, 2018, the division received a complaint from Colorado Parks and Wildlife that the operation's discharge to the Arkansas River was causing increased turbidity downstream for several miles. CPW was concerned that this increased turbidity was a potential threat to fish health, particularly to the state endangered sucker-mouth minnow, for which critical habitat exists in that section of the river. CPW took a few photos that they added with the complaint upstream and downstream of the mine site. They took these photos on May 31st, 2018. So slide 7 shows 2 of the photos that were included in CPW's complaint. The photo on the left was taken of the river approximately 1.5 miles upstream from the mine site, and it shows clear water. Might be a little hard to make out on your printout. The photo on the right was taken of the river approximately 5 miles downstream of the mine site, and the water there is noticeably more muddy, turbid. On June 14th, the division conducted an inspection of the site and found that the operation did have an unauthorized release of pollutants to the surface drainage system. Specifically, sediment-laden wastewater from the wash plant was discharged to the Arkansas River on at least 1 occasion. The division also found that the operator had affected 37.52 acres outside of the approved affected land boundary. On July 12th, the division mailed the inspection report and a reason to believe a violation exists letter to the operator, notifying them of 3 possible violations. Slide 9 shows an aerial image of the site with the approved permit area outlined in red and the offsite affected lands outlined in yellow. The offsite affected areas include, maybe I can point this out. I don't know if all of you can see this screen. So a roadside ditch in which the processed water was discharged to the river. So it's kind of difficult with this wonky mouse, but Here's the wash plant area here on the west side of the permit area. And the ditch just runs up along this northwest edge of the permit area here, all the way north to the river. So we're including that ditch. There's also an equipment storage area up here at the north end of the site. And the wash plant settling ponds, at least one of them are fully outside of the permit boundary there. And portions of the main access road and the scale house, so that would be this northwest edge and also down at the southwest edge there where you first enter the site. That's where the scale house is. And then some of their material and topsoil overburden stockpiles were hanging off the southwest edge down here near the entrance. And then there's a sand loadout area near the railroad down here to the southwest. It's outlined in yellow. So in the approved mining plan, it states that the operation will dry mine sand and gravel, creating open pits 65 to 70 feet deep. The operator would install dewatering trenches around the phases that they were mining, and the water would be routed to discharge settling ponds, from which water is pumped into an existing irrigation lateral and discharged into the Arkansas River. The wash plant water would be directed to settling ponds, then pumped back for reuse in the wash process. So the discharge that was authorized was from the dewatering trenches. The operation also committed to obtaining the necessary discharge permits from CDPHE Water Quality Control Division for all the discharges from the site. And all the water used for the operation would include evaporation from exposed groundwater from their dewatering trenches and discharge settling pond, dust control, and water retained and material extracted. And that all their consumptive uses would be covered under a substitute water supply plant approved by the state engineer's office. Forgot to advance there. Slide 12 shows a closer view of the offsite affected lands at the northwestern edge of the mine site from the wash plant to the river. And I realize it's kind of an elongated shape. It's a little difficult to get it big enough to really clearly see it, but that gives you more of an idea of those areas. Note that these areas include, as stated previously, the wash plant settling ponds, the ditch in which the process water was released to the river, an equipment truck storage area, and a portion of the access road, which was an existing agricultural road that was widened for use by the operation. I have a few photos from my June 14th inspection. Slide 13 is a view looking across one of the wash plant settling ponds. So you'll note the pond was filled in with sediment. So the edges of that pond are delineated with the yellow line there. And the operator was digging out one of the ponds while I was there. So slide 14 shows an image of that. Slide 15, you're looking across the new wash plant settling pond, and that one is completely outside of the affected land there. Slide 16 is looking toward the material wash plant there on your right, and the roadside ditch is on the left. That's where the plant wastewater was released to the river. There's still some silty water in there during the inspection. Slide 17 also shows the roadside ditch. You can just see there's a lot of muck in there, a lot of sludge.
What's sludge?
Well, I believe it's fines from washing the material. I'm calling it muck, sludge, just some real silty type material.
So it's natural fines out of the pit.
That's what I believe. Yeah, I mean, they're washing the material at the plant. I mean, perhaps the operator can clarify on that, but I think it's fines from washing the material. Slide 18 is a Another view of the ditch. So this is a little further north going toward the river. And what I wanted to note here is just that, you know, they went in and dredged this ditch maybe a few times looking at it. I mean, you've got some vegetative growth on that material. So just kind of indicates that this ditch has been utilized by the operation probably on more than one occasion. Slide 19 is the closest to the river. So I'm actually looking away from where it enters the river, sorry. So I indicated on there, you know, I'm looking upstream, I guess, toward the mine site. And this area is also outside the affected land boundary. And slide 20 is the equipment truck storage area that I showed you previously. Just a flattened area there that was cleared and being used for, you know, fuel storage and equipment storage. And slide 21 shows those stockpiles I mentioned earlier. So the scale house is indicated in yellow on the right. So this is close to the entrance. I'm looking sort of south here. And it's just the portion of those piles that are outside of the affected land boundary and the road there in the scale house area. And slide 22 is the topsoil overburden stockpiles. So those are partially located outside of the permit boundary at the southwest corner there. So slide 23 shows a closer view of the offsite affected lands near the railroad. In talking with the operator, this approximately 26.8 acre area was being utilized as a loadout facility for sand that was mined and processed at the West Farm pit. And I had a couple of photos of that area. Slide 24 is a view looking across that area. You can see kind of in the background there, there's sand just piled along, you know, along the railroad, the loadout area. And there's some equipment present. Slide 25 shows the same area, some of the sand that's piled in that area near the railroad. So slide 26 includes the definition of affected lands as described by CRS 34-32.5-103, parent 1. And according to this definition, the areas the operation is disturbed outside of the approved affected land boundary are considered affected lands. These areas do include roads, which have been substantially upgraded to support the operation, settling ponds, work, parking, storage, or waste discharge areas, and areas in which structures, facilities, equipment, machines, tools, or other materials or property that result from or are used in such operations are situated. And therefore, the staff has the following recommendations. Staff recommends that the board find the operator in violation of CRS 34-32.5-116, parent 4, parent H, and Rule 3.1.6, parent 1, for failure to minimize disturbances to the prevailing hydrologic balance of the affected land and of the surrounding area, and to the quantity or quality of water in surface systems during the mining operation, and find the operator in violation of CRS 34-32.5-109, parent 1, for failure to first obtain a reclamation permit from the Mineland Reclamation Board or office prior to engaging in a new operation, and in violation of CRS 34-32.5-124 for failure to comply with the conditions of the permit or order, permit, or regulation. Apologize. So staff recommends the board issue a cease and desist order in accordance with CRS 34-32.5-123, parent 1, prohibiting any further activity on lands outside the approved affected land boundary, including the use of wash plant settling ponds located outside of or partially outside of the approved affected land boundary, with the exception of environmental maintenance, reclamation, or corrective actions, until a violation has been resolved to the satisfaction of the division and the board. The division requests that the board find the following corrective actions: that the operator be required to amend permit number M 2008-078 to incorporate all affected lands into the permit and include an updated operational plan for the wash plant and associated facilities. The amendment application shall be filed with the division within 90 days of the mailing date of the board's order, with all materials in an approvable form within statutory timeframes. And for civil penalties, pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123, parent 2, an operator who operates without a permit shall be subject to a civil penalty of not less than $1,000 per day, nor more than $5,000 per day for each day the land has been affected, not to exceed 365 days. An operator who mines substantial acreage beyond the approved permit boundary may be found to be operating without a permit. In this case, the board may assess a civil penalty of $41,000 to $205,000 for 41 days of violation, which would be from the date that the RTB letter was mailed, July 12th, to this hearing, at $1,000 to $5,000 per day. Pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123, parent 4, in addition to the civil penalties imposed above, the board shall also assess a civil penalty in an amount not less than the amount necessary to cover costs incurred by the division in investigating the alleged violation. In this case, the board may assess an additional civil penalty in the amount of $849.60 based on 15 hours of staff time at $56.64 an hour. So the division our staff recommends the board assess a total civil penalty in the amount of $205,849. This would include $205,000 plus the staff time amount, with all but $25,849.60 suspended if the operator complies with a corrective action by the deadline specified. And slide 31 concludes the presentation prepared by division staff. Does the board have any questions?
The original permit was approved in 2008,
Yes.
and then just one technical revision in 2015.
No, there's been a few actually. So that was, I believe, TR4. So I think that was the last one. TR4. So I believe each of those was the part of the phase bond, where they come in, they say, we're going to disturb more acreage, we're opening up new phases, and then we assess the bond accordingly. So the last time we did that was in 2015, I believe.
Has this been the first inspection since 2015?
It has not. Actually, I inspected the site in 2015 so it was due again next year, according to our 4-year frequency. So when I inspected the site at that point, they were actually just putting in their first slurry wall up there in the northwest corner, and the site looked quite different. A lot has been disturbed since I've been out there. There's been a lot of activities out there since then.
And for example, that area in the southwest where they're storing sand, they weren't doing that then?
I did not observe that when I was out there, and you can see it from the road when you're driving in. So I didn't see that when I inspected last time.
Any other questions for the division? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this point, the operator, can you please come forward and identify yourself, whoever's going to be testifying. Please identify yourself for the record.
Morning, my name is Ron Peterson with Prowers Accurate Operators.
Carl Nyquist, also with Prowers Accurate Operators.
I have a few notes to give you a little bit of history on this mine and permit and what have you from the operator's standpoint. Approximately 5 or 6 years ago, operator called Crossfire LLC was doing some irrigation construction in the adjacent farms around this pit. And they would run it using a scraper type system and had several pieces of equipment. They built a lot of irrigation ponds in the surrounding fields to run the center pivot operation. And then they became the operator of this permit. Crossfire LLC did. They were the original operator approximately 5 or 6 years ago. They used the yard at the north end in the yellow that is outside the affected area. That's where they staged their equipment when they were doing the irrigation improvements. And they continued to stage their equipment there to do the initial stripping of topsoil and overburden over the phase 1 in the northwest corner. And it was just that was their yard. So they operated a pit during about 2/3 of phase 1. And right after they started stripping in probably 14, they put in the permanent scales and the scale house in the yellow sliver up towards the south and west edge of the permit. They put the scale right alongside the road, right there where the access road was. And it's a permanent scale in concrete. So they established that and the yard up there, and then they put the wash plant in and established the first couple of sediment ponds inside the red area where the wash plant is. So they established this, and we're operating a pit with a crusher, a dry screen, and a wash plant. And they operated it probably 2.5, 3 years. And then Prowers Aggregate Operators did a cessation of operator and took over the permit. And they've been operating it the last 2 years, approximately 2.5 years. And so these, obviously on the scale and the equipment yard, we didn't do enough due diligence in getting a survey done and noticing that these 2 items were outside our red line of permitted acres. And just to get off subject a little bit, in this assessment, it says we're mining without a permit. Well, we have a permit. We might have been not following the specific mining plan, but it makes it sound like we don't even have a mining permit. Well, we do have a mining permit. There's been one there since 2008, I believe. So we didn't do our job in locating these pieces to make sure they were inside our boundary. Then we migrated into that yellow area. We were migrating into there. We hadn't used the sediment pond, but I had constructed a sediment pond in the sliver going down that west road to be used. And then before we used it is when we had a inadvertent breach in our existing sediment ponds, and it went down the farm irrigation ditch road and went down it and ended up a discharge in the river to the north up by 31. That ditch was there and that road was there when we first started. We were using it. Basically, it was catching sediment. We were maintaining it. As Amy said, it looks like it's been maintained. We did maintain it. And it finally, due to our overuse of it, we had an event with a well and a couple other issues that are neither here nor there that inadvertently discharged it. And that's our fault. Now I'd like to go to the land up by the railroad. We've had people down to the pit. I don't know who inspected the pit, but that's always been semi-developed, and questions have been asked from our engineers to staff about including it or not including it in the permit. And we were under the assumption if we were selling the sand and a different entity was selling it from that side into the rail, we did not have to permit that. That site was originally developed for transloading wind turbine components. It was built with a temporary lease from BNSF Logistics, leased it, and offloaded wind turbine components there, and then reloaded them on trucks and took them to the wind farms. After that development went away, that project, then we started selling sand to a company that was selling it to another company in Dallas, and they were transloading sand there. So we sell the sand to them, and they transload the sand out there. But it had multiple transloading uses, so we thought we did not need to include that in the permit. What else can I tell you about the history of this? We should have took care of our sediment water better. That's our fault. We shouldn't have we should have had a survey done when we did the succession of operator, make sure everything was in balance. That was our due diligence fault, not doing that. I think we've eliminated any conduit from our wash plant to the river. We filled it, backfilled it. We've got everything bermed and sloped internal to where anything that gets away from us will stay internal and go into the pit. And then we have to deal with it in our mining pit where we're mining our gravel. So, and JC and Todd can go over all the corrective actions we've already done in the last month. I was just reading through it, and I mean, I'm supposed to read ahead in these, but in my opinion, it seems like the penalty is very excessive for what actually happened and how it happened and the corrective action, the effort we're making to make sure we have a viable plan and this never happens again. We've got everything in the yellow, in the north portion of the yellow, has been all sediment removed, all debris, all equipment, and has been topsoiled and prepped for grass. And we've got a grass bid actually yesterday of a contractor that is prepared to come and seed those areas as soon as we give him the go ahead. They are ready to be reclaimed, and then we've got it bermed off so nothing can get in that area.
Show me on the map the area you just talked about.
Where we've reclaimed?
Where it's ready to see, yeah, where you've reclaimed and it's ready to be seeded.
Basically from here to here, this is really, you can't even walk through here without a machete right now because we've had a lot of rain down there. There was a small ditch this wide where the sediment went from this farmer's irrigation ditch that we discharged into. It went from here to there in a little narrow ditch that we've sent pictures in that's overgrown. And then from here, there's that equipment yard. We've got it prepped for grass seed. All of this edge that is left of the road where the inadvertent discharge went down the farmer's ditch, it doesn't exist. It's ready for seed, and this area where that new pond that hadn't been used that Amy showed you, it's prepped and ready. We've done nothing over here as we're using this in the sand transload operation.
I've got a question on that, Ron, that spot you were just pointing at. Is that, do you own that? Do you have control of that piece?
I don't know who owns it.
Actually owned by
Carl.
GP Irrigated Farm. So you know, we have several entities. I'm kind of the common thread between those. But we originally assembled a number of farms, and this being one of them, and then partnered with Syracuse Dairy on the farms. And ultimately, Syracuse bought us out of that entity. It owns that. However, they're not farming it. They want to transfer it back to us, and we're in the process of doing that over time. And so now we have that going to another entity that transloads sand down into the Dallas, Texas area right now for Charlie's Concrete.
Okay. So who actually operates the loading, offloading piece of that?
We actually, through Prowers Aggregate, load the sand to the train there for them.
Okay.
And then they take it, and they have an unloading operation in Saginaw, Texas.
Okay.
And they unload it and ship it to Charlie's and other concrete.
So essentially it is part of your operation then?
We're loading it.
Okay. Okay.
We may have been doing the transloading stuff with the wind turbine stuff when Amy was down the other time, or maybe it just being developed, but.
Or are those ponds that DPW's got, you know, where people can fish and stuff from your place there?
There's about 25 miles east,
No,
the Holly ones.
you have
Oh.
ponds right there in town, right? As gotta be.
Oh, yeah,
They're-
they're to the west.
Upstream a mile.
Are they?
That's where she took the one photo of the Clearwater off of the river bridge at Lamar.
They're not yours.
There's the cities or CPWs. They were another operator.
The first phase that's complete is now full and used for water storage
On our deal.
on our deal. But we don't.
JC York with GAT Consulting.
Do you have anything written down on that piece that you were recently talking about, that you're loading the sand and it's offloaded somewhere else and somebody else has this involved? Is there anything written that explains all of this very clearly and gives you legal right to be doing that?
I'm not sure that we do have something like that because we've always been partners on both parts of the ground.
I think we might have, Ron Peterson, I think we might have something at the county level. We had to get a
Yeah,
special
that's
use permit from Prowers County, and it would show that entity, it has whatever rights to load there, but we did have to get a special use permit to load sand there. Some entity did, I don't know.
We had to
which
get a special use permit for sand and for BN. Remember, we did do
for the
that.
wind
Yeah.
turbine stuff. So there is a document somewhere, I don't know what entity it is.
Do you know what the mix of seed, you say grass seed, there are multiple kinds of grass seed.
We're going with the NRCS recommendation that's in our permit, our mining permit. It's recommended by NRCS and it's approved in our mining permit, that mixture.
And you're really going to follow it?
We've ordered the mixture from the seed company and they have to hunt up one of them that was hard to find because there was one that was hard for them to locate.
So the division has a copy of that seed mix?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jen.
Have you visited with Travis in regard to what you're trying to establish here? I mean, do Travis Black, you know?
I would sure love to, this deal, I would have wished that they would have brought it to my attention when their, one of their game wardens, basically one of their wildlife officer, and their wildlife officer that noticed this came to the pit with Amy and was in the inspection with us and we interacted, but not with Travis. Travis is not, I would like to visit with him. I don't know him personally, but I know who he is down there.
You didn't go over with DPW, your grass mixture.
No, I think maybe on the initial permitting, they might have, but not recently.
Might not hurt for JC to go over all the measures that we've taken since.
Yeah. And whenever they're done questioning us, we'll.
I have a couple more questions. Did you say you took over after the technical revision in 2015?
I don't know when that was. We took over sometime in July of 16. I believe July of 16 is when the secession was. Is that right, Amy? It was 2016. It was July.
So that was after the technical revision.
And after the last inspection.
I'd say yes then.
Do you have a problem with permitting that loadout area?
No, I don't have a problem permitting. I just don't want to be penalized for not permitting it because it has been discussed with some staff at some level, and we were doing 2 or 3 different transloading deals. So no is the answer to that. We don't have a problem permitting.
Well, this is not the first case where we've kind of gone backwards in history and say, oh, wait a minute, you're affecting lands over here that this has been happening.
One thing I'd like to say, or is it still your turn?
I think
Okay,
Tom has a few more.
okay.
Then the cease and desist that the staff has recommended stops you from using the ponds that are outside the permit area. That's not going to affect your operation.
We've removed the ponds, anything that's out of bounds. We are not even using our 2 that you saw the excavator in. We are not completely done redesigning them. So we're going directly in a pipeline to the bottom of the pit to be processed through 5 more sediment ponds. So I was real concerned when I saw that cease and desist. I nearly had a heart attack, but if it just to be clear on it, I think it's just talking about stuff that's outside the permit boundaries.
One thing that we would still need is the loadout, because we have a take or pay agreement with the company in Texas.
I don't think they're including that. I mean, where is that cease and desist? Anything of outside the approved affected land boundary.
Does that include the loadout area along the railroad?
We would have to clarify that.
This is not the provision, and the intent of the cease and desist order as it was written would include the loadout area, all off-site areas outside of the affected area, including any sediment ponds that are partially outside of it.
So that would be include our scale and our loadout area.
That's a death blow.
So that would effectively shut your operation.
It would end the operation. Because we have, I'd just like to say, we did no mining outside the permitted boundaries. We did a sediment pond and there's a scale, there's a loadout, but we did not mine anything outside of our mining limits.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Russ.
This is Russ Means with Vision. Our intent and stuff on the cease and disorder is actually to focus in on the hydrological impacts. If we wanted to modify that, how you base that order to just include those and exclude the scale house and the loadout area for just the current use, then we would not have an issue with it.
That's all the questions.
Anything else from the operator?
I'd like to have JC Todd talk about all the remediation we've done.
You could please identify yourself for the record.
JC York with J&T Consulting. We're the engineer for Powers Aggregate Operators, helping them with doing the permitting for the amendment and also helping them with their stormwater management plan. What we've done to date, as far as doing some of the corrective actions, like Ron spoke before, we asked them to go in and basically reclaim the areas where we had sediment in the existing sediment ponds in the yellow area that you see just in the kind of the central area that Todd's pointing out there. And then to the north where there was equipment parking, that's all been basically sediment removed. They've gone in and disked and then prepped it for seeding. The area that's outside the boundaries where the scale house and the existing all road or entrance to the pit are, and then also the rail transload facility, that's been included in our amendment application that we have put together, and we actually sent that over to Amy earlier this week. We've also provided a letter from Powers Aggregate Operators with pictures of those areas that we reclaimed to Amy. That was sent out yesterday. So if it pleases the board, we can get some copies of that to give to you guys as well, so you can take a look at that for yourselves. I didn't bring copies with me, but I did email that over to Amy yesterday. As far as the other areas of amendment, We basically included everything outside of the boundary in the yellow areas. And then we adjusted the boundary next to the center pivot that you see to basically take that triangle out of the permit boundary because it's never going to be used. Then we included an area where a future conveyor may be constructed. You go straight to the transload facility. And when we had talked with staff previously about the transload facility, it was our impression that if the sand was hauled using trucks out of the pit, weighed and sold, and then dumped at a different site, that wouldn't necessarily need to be included in the permit boundary. So if we were mistaken in that, that's our, I guess, misinterpretation or communication with staff. But we are now going to include that in the amendment that we've submitted. And there's a few things we've got to do before Amy can start a review of that as far as doing public notice and basically getting our notices out to surrounding property owners and that type of thing. But we have prepared everything based on her inspection report to address all of those issues.
You said you're also helping them with their stormwater management plan.
Yes.
What are you doing to improve that?
So we basically redid their stormwater management plan to include more forms and more structural BMPs that they can use now. And then they've constructed more sediment ponds down in the bottom of the pit. We've directed all drainage in the mining area to the bottom of the pit, same way with anything coming from the wash plants, so that basically you cannot discharge from the site unless it's pumped out of the bottom of the pit. And we've submitted that to Joe Campbell at CDPHE, so it's in his review, and we believe we've addressed all of his comments and questions that he had in his report that he had sent out. I believe it was previous to his inspection was previous to Amy's, and then I believe they sent out their order. It was 45 days after that inspection, so we just got it, I think, the first part of August, and then we submitted things back to him. I think it was August 10th, and so it's currently in his review on that.
The property that is outlined in yellow,
Yes.
who owns that property? Are several owners, different parcels, or is it?
I believe it's just GP Irrigated Farms.
Of which you are not part of?
I was part of it, now I still sit on the board. It's 100% owned by Syracuse Dairy, but on as advisory board.
But they haven't granted you permission to utilize that land in writing?
Yeah, they have.
They did, I
And
believe.
that document has gone to S. Eschberger
Yeah,
to see?
Sorry, this is Todd Yee, JT Consulting. They're right to enter in mine.
Hear your name.
Todd Yee, YEE, JT Consulting. A letter from them giving them right to enter in mine has been included in the amendment from GP Irrigated Farms.
And when did that go into her? Just now when you submitted that, like yesterday or whenever it was?
I believe there was access granted, though, with the Prowers County special use permit.
Are you sure of that?
I'm pretty sure we can find the document.
I think that might be wise.
When was that permit applied for?
The special use permit was, I believe that was in 2017.
Well, we have two special use permits.
When you're answering a question, we need to make sure you're getting on the microphone.
Sure. I believe that was in 2017 when we did the special use permit.
I think we actually had two special use permits. We did the first special use for the pit way back in the day.
Right.
So that would
Then we amended.
2008, and then we amended it in 2017 to include the loadout area.
So the Prowers County permit includes all this permitted area as well as this whole piece of ground here. And then I think last year did an amendment for this to add it as a multimodal transportation loadout facility. All been approved through the county and the underlying property owners.
But does the division have a copy of all of that?
Don't
So we
believe so.
have the amended.
I think it needs to be checked to see if they do, if the division needs that.
Yeah, we can certainly provide that.
Do that. I don't know, on all the roads, we have class use agreements for all those roads, and so, you know, I'm probably the guy to blame on the roads. I thought we had the use of those roads inside the permit, inside both permits, actually. Because we give ourselves those abilities.
So do I understand there's a technical revision that was filed yesterday that covers all this?
An amendment.
Oh, an amendment, excuse me.
Not filed, but
I would like to maybe just say a few things to the board again. This is Amy Eshberg, just whenever, and I'll clarify a few of these things.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Now, it's a couple things. How often do you use that loadout site?
right now, once a week,
We load one train a week on Peterson.
at least one a week.
How many employees do you have?
We have about 20 full-time employees down there.
The report questions a substitute supply plant. Is there one that covers for example, the water going out in the train cars?
Yes,
Yes.
there is, and I think we just refiled that, is that correct?
Yes. So the substitute water supply plan was applied for in March this year, and it's still with the state engineer's office. We haven't actually received an approval letter back, but they've been operating that way and sending in their accounting to the state, which they've been accepting.
So this is the first time that's been filed.
No, there was a previous substitute water supply application and approval. The renewal that they did, I think for whatever reason, I don't know if the renewals were not something the state looked at when they came in. And then just recently, they renewed it again in March, just with different shares of water that we're helping replace the lag depletions.
Any other questions from the board on the alleged violations? No? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
At this point, we'll have the division come up.
Sammy Eschberger with the division. I just wanted to clarify a few things. So on the talk about the sand loadout area, I think the operator said they had had some discussion with the division. I'm not aware of that. It's not in the record. But what we do have in the record is that when they were applying for their permit in 2008, the division so there was some discussion about a rail loadout area in that permit. And in looking back in the adequacy reviews and responses, there was a response from the operator in March 17th, 2009. So this was prior to approval. So this was after the division informed them that the rail loadout would have to be included in the affected land boundary. So they removed this proposal from the permit, and they said, if future market conditions warrant shipping gravel products via rail beyond the local market, GP Aggregates may in the future revise their permit to include a rail loadout facility within the permit boundary. So I think, I don't know, maybe there was some discussion. I don't have any knowledge of that, but just looking in the permit file, there was discussion of a rail loadout area initially, and the division said it would have to be affected land. So they just took it out at that point. But it sounds like talking to them that they got the special use in 2017. So there must have been warranted to use that at that point. So I just wanted to note that. As far as the amendment, so we have not received an amendment yet, but I will point out that the operator has been, they're trying to comply, and I do appreciate that. They did send me some pictures this morning showing some of the work they've done out there, and they did submit, not an amendment officially, but they did kind of give me a snapshot of what they're looking at submitting via Dropbox, and I kind of looked through it and just said, hey, you're going to have to include all these areas in your affected land. So they were going to revise that. And, so we have had some discussions, but they haven't officially submitted anything yet because we wanted to see how, the board goes. And then on the substitute water supply plan, I just want to point out that it wasn't in the record. I think the last one we had was from 2012. And I did have some discussion with DWR, and it sounds like maybe the renewals may have lapsed a few years. And so they are getting back on it, and they're trying to get that in place. And I believe JC did provide me an emailed copy of what they submitted to DWR recently. So they're trying to get that approved at this point. I also want to point out that CPW did want to be here today. They were going to listen in via telephone, but he was unable to make it. It was going to be Travis Black. But they did, in my discussions with Travis, it did appear that they, there was some observations of the river downstream at that same point, having some turbidity. This was downstream from the mine, at least as far back as November 2017 is what they told me. And I think looking at the pictures, it's pretty obvious that there's, it probably occurred on more than one occasion. But, and in our opinion, just looking at the ponds and, obviously they weren't being maintained. So that was at least part of the issue there. And then, let's see. I think that might be all I have. Unless there's any questions.
This is Russ Means for the division. Amy, can you please point out where their approved discharge point is on the map so the board understands where that is as opposed to where it was going out?
Sure, I can do that. It's a little off the map, but I can point you in the right direction. So, they de-water these areas prior to mining, and they install these slurry walls. And so they have these ponds that they're pumping out of, and they're using these existing agricultural ditches. So they're approved to use these existing ditches to pump to the pond. I believe this one goes like this, and then it discharges to the river up in this direction to the northeast. The operator can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did see the clean discharge here when I was on site. And in talking to CDPHE after their inspection, which was the day after mine, that discharge is the legal discharge. The illegal outfall, at least one of them, is the one that we identified. They do have a legal discharge permit for the dewatering water from the pit.
One question for you too. Have you talked to Travis since these inspections, and has he noted any improvement in water quality and turbidity after the operators made some of these improvements on site?
I have talked to Travis, and I've also talked to Jim Ramsey, which is the one that accompanied me on the inspection, and they have not seen any evidence that this is continued, that this is continued.
Okay. So they are noticing clearer water downstream.
Well, they haven't noticed any issues with the water being turbid, let's say downstream. That it,
Okay.
And the operator did submit some photos this morning that they said they took recently, and it looks like the river's returning possibly back to, this would have been over a month, since my inspection, since it occurred. And so I think there's been enough time that if they've discontinued that, it should be clear at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is Scott Schultz with the Colorado Attorney General's Office, Counsel for DRMets. I'll also add that there is a reservoir upstream of this site. So when the reservoir releases water, it's very difficult to see where the sediment's coming from. So it's when the reservoir is not discharging water that you can see that the sediment was coming from the site.
Okay. Maybe it wasn't your testimony that picture that CPW took was 5 miles downstream?
It's approximately 5 miles if you're following the river. It's a little bit less as the crow flies, but yeah, it's, if you're just following the river path, it's about 5 miles. I would say probably about 3 as the crow flies. That makes sense.
Well, but really the
Down at-
true distance is
Yeah,
how far is the
right.
water flowing.
So it was about.
That just
about 5 miles.
that just struck me as a long
That's
way
what-
downstream.
Right, it's not at County Road 13, I believe, on the bridge.
Officials for the Colorado Attorney General's office. Again, I just had a few comments. I think staff is being extremely generous and kind to this operator. I view these as extremely egregious violations. I don't think there's any question that they're mining outside of their permit boundaries and mining without a permit. This is not a little mom and pop operation. This is a large operation with 20 full-time staff. CPW noticed discharges since November of 2017 in the Arkansas. We don't know how much sediment was being discharged from this facility. It's virtually impossible to measure how much sediment was being discharged illegally. And again, this operation they are not following their permit. They know better than to discharge directly into the Arkansas River without a discharge permit. They have a discharge permit. And this, I think it's also important to note that CPW noticed the sediment discharge since at least November 2017. This was not self-disclosed by the operator at all. This was not reported to the division or to CDPHE. This is a case that will likely have enforcement by CDPHE as well, but this is an active mining permit. I think it's important to note that just in name only, they have to be followed. And this operator is not following the terms of their permit. And if we could turn to the ditch, that the evidence shows that the discharge directly into the Arkansas River was not an inadvertent breach, was not a one-off. This shows that this ditch was being maintained and being discharging sediment directly into the Arkansas River. There's pictures of, and I think the operator made some comments about that they were maintaining the sediment ponds. And there's one picture that Amy took of a front end loader, finally mucking out the sediment pond. Amy told the operator several days prior to inspection that she was going to inspect them. So it's important to note that. This shows that they were not being maintained whatsoever until they were notified by DRMS that they were coming on a site visit. So I think the staff is asking for a fairly large penalty, but I think it's important for operators to know that they must follow their permits and they can't make business decisions to cut corners and save money without there being some sort of repercussions. I know that their staff is happy that they are at least kind of turning the corner, but these are egregious violations, and that's why staff is recommending a higher penalty. It's up to the board's prerogative of what penalty amount they want. But again, I submit that this is not a small operation. This operation knows better, and they should be sent a message. Discharging sediment directly into the Arkansas River to me is a very egregious violation of an active permit, especially when they have a discharge permit. So with that, I'm happy to help answer any questions as well.
I did want to make one more clarification if I could. So the operator was talking about, we're not mining this, and I know that's the language in our act is, it's mining. They weren't extracting material in those areas, but they were mining. And I did want to point out that the reason why we're going with the mining without a permit is because pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123 parent 2, if the division considers the amount of offsite damage to be substantial, and in this case, we consider, 37.52 acres to be substantial. I think generally we go for over 2 acres is kind of our policy there is substantial. So that's why in this case, we are going for the violation there of mining without a permit. You know, I understand they weren't extracting material, but it is called mining without a permit. So I just wanted to clarify that too.
Of the 37 acres, how much is in the loadout area?
26.8, I think is what I calculated. The majority.
Any other questions for the division?
On the last page of this handout that you provided, the operator, and this is just the last part of the sentence of that last, next to the last paragraph. Suspended if the operator complies with the corrective action by the deadline specified. Can you tell me, I'm not seeing what that specified deadline is. It may be here, but I'm just not picking it up.
So the deadline, it's in the corrective actions on slide 28. So it'd be within 90 days of the mailing date of the board.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the operator before we close testimony?
You think you can accomplish this in 90 days? Is that?
I don't know how long the amendment will take, but I'd like to defer to JC and Amy on the amendment. Okay, just the middle? Yeah. Yes, we can do all the corrective action within 90 days. I'd like to clarify one thing about the rail loadout, if I could, on the map. The original rail loadout was going to be a spur in here, inside the farm and near, adjacent to the mine. It's not, they were not talking about this in the original permit when they decided not to do it. It was going to be a circular type spur inside on the property. So this is a total different animal down here that we decided to go with because of the transloading of the other type materials, wind turbines and stuff, and did not do this one, which we decided in 08 and 09 not to do.
We actually bought existing rail spur from the coal-fired power plant last year, I think it was. And that's what required us to go back to the county for the amendment to the special use permit. And then we thought we'd had some conversations, and because that was going to be used for multiple different types of wind, obviously wind turbine, as well as sand, and certainly we're working on some other materials that would be loaded there. We thought that was only going to be subject to special use.
All right, thank you. This time we'll close testimony and begin board deliberations. I'll turn it over to the board. Hear your thoughts. We have 3 alleged violations. Hydrologic balance, failure to obtain a reclamation permit, and failure to comply with conditions of their permits. What are your thoughts on those violations?
I guess I'll comment. I think they're all legitimate, all of the violations. Frankly, pretty sloppy work, I think, as far as the permitting end of the operation. And I guess the only recommendation I would make or change to the staff recommendation, which has already been addressed by Russ, would be, I don't think there's any need to shut the operation down, which would happen if we included the railroad out. Otherwise, I guess I think the violations are legitimate.
And do you have something to add, Karen? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Okay.
that's fine. Go ahead and then I'll repeat. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say that. So as far as the cease and desist order, we've heard testimony from the division that this would not include the scale and loadout area. And then the corrective actions, the operator testified that they can comply with the recommended corrective actions. And what we heard from the operator really is that I do not believe that the proposed civil penalty is appropriate.
I'm sorry,
That the proposed civil penalty is not appropriate. The operator stated that it is higher than they think is warranted. So what does the board think about the civil penalty? Go ahead, John.
Before I address the civil penalty, I think the discharge to the river fits Mr. Schultz's description of being egregious. The rest of it, as far as the permitted area outside the permitted boundaries and all of that, is just exactly the same case we had a month or 2 months ago with a permit that stuff didn't get included on. And we have an operator who has come and said they will include it. That's not a problem. They're going to get the amendment in. They're going to do all that. But so I really think the hydrologic balance issue is the pertinent. As far as the fine is concerned, I'd be comfortable with half that much. I still think that's significant.
John?
And I'm always concerned about the Arkansas River since I live on it too, but I wish Travis or CPW would have been here to question a little bit. I think I almost agree. I'd like to reduce the penalty to 10,000, but I want to make sure we stick hard on our incentive to make sure it's done within 90 days. 20 jobs is a big deal for Prowers County. That's a big operation. And if these guys, and it sounds like to me, I mean, if they're going to get with the staff, I think they need to come to Jesus meeting, and maybe this is what this has been. But I would, and I want to make sure that, what Russ is saying over there, that they can still load out their material, because familiar with what they're taking, and that's sort of unusual to be able to ship that kind of material that far. That's a long way, man. And I mean, that's just where I am. It's got to be rectified. And if they're willing to do that, I'd sure like to look for a common place. And I'd do your half, but I think 10. But stick with. You got to have it done in 90 days, and you got to figure out all the little details. That's got to be your number one priority to stay in business.
Karen?
One thing that would have been helpful to me is to see some photos of what they've done already today, and not just the fact that stating that it's been done. It would have been nice to see some photographic documentation of that.
But I guess I have to make another comment. This project is, the purpose of what these people are investing is to create storage, water storage on the Arkansas River. And they're putting millions of dollars into this thing. And it looks to me like they're trying to do it in the right way. And it's going to have a significant positive impact on everybody along the Arkansas River to have this kind of water storage. And
Maybe.
I mean, I think it has to be done within the rules. And I think this is a wake-up call.
Just to, it's sort of outside of it, but this storage gives the ability to, and now it's down on the end of the Arkansas, but this gives the ability to ship that water to Denver. I'm going to pose it.
Duly noted in the record. Karen.
And part of that is, I feel like, and you're familiar with it because you still have, I am, that's a really nice recreation area, CPW that I ask about. And hopefully these people will comply. That's kind of a neat area coming into Lamar, and of course the farming activity is a big deal for them. So, I mean, there's no question in my mind. It's egregious. People need to know you can't do what they're doing or allow happen to the Arkansas. And especially when you get down that far, because there's not dilution is a part of the solution, and there's not a lot of dilution down there because the water's pretty much gone other places. So, but I would still like to look some common ground in there if we could find it.
I hear what all of these board members say, and I agree with them to the point, but I think this group has to understand they got one chance. And, we cut the recommendations, staff recommendations down to a different amount. They've got 90 days and it isn't, coming back. Well, we're talking about it. No, it's got to be it's got to be approved by the division, and there's got to be a follow-up. And if it isn't, then the whole ball of wax is going to be thrown at them. Because it's a big operation, then they better act like big people and carry it out correctly. There are lots of people that can carry out these operations correctly. And chatting about it and having discussions is not sufficient. And I think we need to make it very, very clear. And they may get a little easier this time if the board so votes, but there is that tag on the 90 days, and it better be all corrected by then.
I'm concerned that we have the ability on this board to rewrite the cease and desist so that they can't use the areas that won't shut them down. I don't know how we do that without asking the staff to redraft it in a way that, in other words, I think what we're saying is that we won't include the scale house. I assume whatever roads there are between the scale house and the loadout area.
Access to, right.
And, it sounds to me like kind of a complicated way to describe it.
Acreage wouldn't work.
Chris, you got any ideas?
You can't ask him, but
Can't
unless we're going to reopen, which is
Oh,
fine
okay.
with me.
Yeah, it would need to be scale house loadout and all access to those locations.
Good point.
I think that covers things.
And I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's just frustrating for me that it seems like everything up to this point has been sort of catch up. No, we didn't notify the division when we had a discharge, but now we're doing it. No, we don't have our SWSP, but now we're applying for it. It has been sloppy operations up to this point, and I'm just hoping that this is that come to Jesus or wake up call or whatever you want to call it. But if it's not, I think we need to talk about what these civil penalties read as, so that we still kind of wield a big stick at the end of the day if corrective action is not taken within 90 days. Because if we do reduce this to 17,000 or 18,000, less staff time, what would this total civil penalty read as? Would we want to keep it at the 205,000? Reduce that to 100? What are we talking about?
I don't think that,
Do you ever reduce those totals?
well, we don't ever reduce below the mandated statutory minimums. There is a range there that we can work within, but I think generally on the suspended portion, I think is where we usually spend most of our time, but it's a good point.
Well, to clarify, they don't have to have corrective action done in 90 days. They have to have an approved amendment
Correct.
in 90 days.
Submitted to the division.
Does there need to be any tag on that
It doesn't even have to be approved.
Does not
It
need
has
to be approved.
Submitted to the division, yes, for approval.
Which is normal procedure.
Normal procedure. All right,
But there's usually a lot of give and take as you put that together. So hopefully there'll be a lot of agreements made before it's ever officially submitted.
we have a motion.
Okay. Okay, I would move that we issue a cease and desist order. Oh, no, with regard to file number M-2008-078, that we find the operator in violation of CRS 34-32.5-116, parent 4, parent H, and Rule 3.1.6, parent 1, for failure to minimize disturbances to the prevailing hydrologic balance of the affected land and of the surrounding area and to the quantity or quality of water in surface water systems during the mining operation, and CRS 34-32.5-109, parent 1, for failure to first obtain a reclamation permit from the Mineland Reclamation Board or office prior to engaging in a new operation, and CRS 34-32.5-124, for failure to comply with the conditions of an order, permit, or regulation. Further move that we issue a cease and desist order in accordance with CRS 34-32.5-123, parent 1, prohibiting any further activity on lands outside the approved affected land boundary, not including the lands necessary for using the rail loadout and scale facility, with the exception of environmental maintenance, reclamation, or corrective actions until the violation has been resolved to the satisfaction of the division and the board. Does that work?
I think so. Can you just say it again? It was
Okay.
not including just the exclusion part of.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just start over. Issue a cease and desist order in accordance with CRS 34-32.5-123, parent 1, prohibiting any further activity on lands outside the approved affected land boundary, not including the lands necessary for using the rail loadout and scale facility, comma, with the exception of environmental maintenance, reclamation, or corrective actions until the violation has been resolved to the satisfaction of the division and the board.
Yeah, I think that gets added.
Okay. Okay, I further move that we require the operator to amend permit number M-2008-078 to incorporate all affected lands into the permit and include an updated operational plan for the wash plant and associated facilities. The amendment application shall be filed with the division within 90 days of the mailing date of the board's order, with all materials in an approvable form within statutory frameworks. And I move that the board assess a total civil penalty in the amount of $205,849, with all but $10,849 suspended if the operator complies with the corrective actions by the specified deadline.
Here's a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Just as a suggestion to the operator, your new best friend needs to be Amy.
I agree.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will call on item number 6, Shannon Murphy. Shannon Murphy, Smuggler Gold Mine LLC, file number P 2012-011. Everyone who will testify in this hearing, can you please stand and raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth? Thank
Thank you.
Good morning. This is Michael Cunningham. I'll be representing the division in this enforcement hearing. This matter has come before you today for consideration of financial warranty forfeiture for failure to submit the 2015 annual fees and 2017 annual report map and fees for file number E-2012-011. This is for the Smuggler Gold Mine operated by Smuggler Gold Mine LLC. The prospecting location is located in Gilpin County. The handout that I provided to the board contains a chronology. I won't run through all of the chronology, only to point out that during the May 16th, 2018 board hearing, the board found Smuggler Gold Mine LLC in violation for failing to submit required annual fees, reports, and maps, and ordered the revocation of file number P 2012-011. The operator, again, was found to be in violation pursuant to CRS 3432-116-4 and CRS 3432-127-2. In addition, the financial warranty was found to be subject to forfeiture pursuant to CRS 3432-118, parent 1, parent B. Pursuant to CRS 3432-118-2, the division mailed by certified mail copies of the notice of board hearing for financial warranty forfeiture on July 5th. These were provided to both financial warrantors and the operator, giving them 30 days notice of this hearing. So the operator and their counsel is present today, and this was had an opportunity to discuss the situation with them just before the hearing. So I think the board will hear from them, but they're seeking to remedy this issue and ask the board for reinstatement of the notice of intent.
Jeff, you here on behalf of the division. So yeah, just to clarify, the division was planning to seek forfeiture of the financial warranty for this matter because it had proceeded essentially as a default hearing. As far as the board process is concerned, we did not anticipate that the operator or counsel would be here today. So it's a bit of a last minute adjustment by staff. So we think it's best if the board hear from the operator, hear their position. It sounds like they are seeking reinstatement and maybe some consideration of the penalties that are due. Right now, and I'll have Michael check my amounts just to make sure I'm not forgetting something. What is left unpaid or unsatisfied in this case are permit fees for 2015 of $86, fees for 2017 of $86. Under the recent board order, there is a $1,000 penalty due. That was the unsuspended amount. And then there's $6,800, which was suspended based on compliance. So there's been no compliance to date. So those are the amounts that are kind of subject to discussion before the board. At this point, staff doesn't have a position on this. We are interested in what the operator wants to request. So with that, kind of the relevant provision for reinstatement of a permit or NOI is CRS 3432-124-6B. That language, again, it discusses suspension or revocation of a permit. The last sentence of that provision does state that once such operations are completed to the satisfaction of the board shall reinstate the permit of the operator. So that's the governing language for reinstatement of a permit or NOI. They have to bring themselves into full compliance to the satisfaction of the board. We're available for any questions now or after the operator presents their situation facts.
So Jeff, what was the total amount that would be due?
I did not add it up.
This is Russ. It's $172 for the annual fees for the NOI, and then it's $1,000 for the unsuspended portion. And then there's also part of the board order was $6,800 for failure to comply.
Any other questions for the division?
Not at this time.
Thank you. All right, we'll hear from the operator. Could you please identify yourself for the record?
Shannon Murphy. John Fagnani. Madam Chair and members of the board, I'm appearing here today with Mr. Shannon Murphy, President of Smuggler Gold Mine LLC, with respect to the matter that's been introduced by council. And I would simply state at the outset that I believe the matter can be quickly and readily resolved with the board's assistance. I believe there are appropriate mitigating circumstances that can be considered and taken into consideration by the board. And Mr. Murphy is prepared to advise you of corrective action that he's capable of taking and presenting to the board today, so that we can hopefully resolve this matter. Or as a result of that, we would hope that we would be able to reinstate the permit, the NOI, and ask for the withdrawal of the cease and desist order. So with that, I'll let Mr. Murphy explain the circumstances to you, and we stand ready for questions you may have. Thank you to the board for providing me the opportunity today. I apologize to Mr. Cunningham, the division, and the board for taking up your time. This matter should have never come before you. We had a series of incidents that occurred dating back to 2015. Our officers had a significant flooding event. Lots of documents and records were damaged, lost. We consolidated operations and actually moved from the address on file in 2017. The fact that we had a return check in 2015, I was not aware of it. I was notified in July of this year that it occurred. And that's not an excuse, it's the fault of my staff for not informing me. I also issued instruction in 2017 to get the annual fee, the permit resubmitted. I have documentation to that extent. It's irrelevant, it wasn't sent in. So in order to remedy that, I have brought payment and the application fee with me today. When we received notification from Mr. Cunningham's office that we had a cease and desist in place, I immediately contacted Mr. Cunningham, and he suggested that I remedy it by going online. I wasn't able to do that, so I asked my assistant, Gloria Watson, to contact the division, go online, and see whether we could be compliant. She did contact Mr. Cunningham's office, spoke to his assistant, and I believe Mr. Cunningham as well. We were unable to log in to the system for whatever the reasons. I believe Mr. Cunningham is aware of that. And we had also received the notification to rectify the 10-day period, grace period, I believe we were given. We received notification of default and cease and desist 2 days after the 10-day period had lapsed. So when I heard about that, I reached out immediately. Mr. Cunningham's advice was come to the meeting, bring the documentation with you, and present your case. In order to remedy the communication or lack thereof from our office to yours, to the DRMS, change the contact information on our form so that all correspondence from the DRMS will go to a local attorney, Thomas & Thomas in Colorado Springs. So that the day a letter arrives, I'm notified whether I'm in town or not. I'll be able to address the matter. I believe Mr. Fagnani made reference to other mitigating circumstances. I was out of the country at your last meeting. My father passed away. I'll supplement Mr. Murphy's testimony because I have actual information to this effect, and I, in fact, met and knew his father.
Would you mind speaking?
Mr. Murphy's father had pancreatic cancer, and it was a very ugly circumstance for a long time. He returned to South Africa to, basically, he returned home to South Africa to die. And I believe Mr. Murphy was in South Africa when this last board appearance was required. As another footnote to Mr. Murphy's testimony, I'll just mention that, in fact, the reason that his assistant, Gloria Watson, could not make the payment online is because I think the number at that point for the mine had been removed from the database or had expired for some reason because of the non-payment, which made it, of course, impossible to make the payment at least online. So with that, I'll let Mr. Murphy continue. I apologize for that. Yeah, my dad was an important part of our operation. And had I known there was a meeting, I would have contacted Mr. Cunningham to ask for an extension. Since we bought the properties, we've spent quite a lot of money at the Smuggler mine, and I apologize again for my emotion. We haven't spent any money in terms of significant expenditure over the last few years, but we've made sure that we've been able to maintain it. We replaced the portal several years ago. Everything remains in good shape. It's locked. We have restricted access to the site. And I'm requesting that the board please consider reinstatement of our permit so that we can continue as an operation at the Smuggler safely. And also please to consider, besides the reinstatement, the penalty. I brought along a check today because I realized I needed to come here prepared so that you know that we are for real. And my understanding was hopefully if I pay the $1,000, the board will consider the fact that I brought the permit with me to hand in, since we were unable to present it online in a timely manner, waiving penalty. So the two payment checks are available today to provide to the DRMS. $1,000 penalty check is very, very well. preparing it. And Mr. Murphy also has a mine plan and a map consistent with the requirements of the statute. He presented as well as corrective actions to the board. She's brought with her today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the operator?
Has there been activity at the site?
No, there's been no activity. I go out and I've been to the property several times just to make sure that there's no pilferage or damage. It's been several months since I've been out there because of all of the issues I was dealing with and being in South Africa. That the site is neat. Mr. Cunningham probably has been out there and he'd be able to confirm what his findings are of the site.
You mentioned you were bringing in two checks, one in the amount of $1,000, the other in the amount of?
I actually have three checks. One is a replacement for the 2015 fee for $86. The other is the 17 fee for $86 and then the $1,000 penalty.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming today and appreciate your testimony. We'll hear from the division again and then deliberate.
Thank you. This is Michael Cunningham again, representing the division. Mr. Murphy's accounting of the phone call with his assistant following the last board hearing is accurate. That phone call did occur after the 10-day period, corrective action period specified in the board order had elapsed. So at that point in time, the permit was revoked. The way that the annual fee reporting system is set up is that once a file is revoked, you're no longer able to go on and submit your annual fees. So we discussed that with him, and we routinely direct operators when we have a revoked permit to appear before the board and seek permit reinstatement. So we acknowledge that he did try to take those steps to rectify the delinquent annual fees following last board hearing. I would note that the first notice that we sent out for that May hearing, that was returned back to us as undeliverable. So it's unfortunate that Mr. Murphy did not receive that notice. And while I'm happy to hear that he's changing some things and is going to ensure that these annual fees are submitted in a timely manner moving forward, I would note that we have had we've struggled to get timely compliance on the annual fees for this NOI since it's been issued. They've been delinquent every year. This is the first time that the matter has come before the board in the form of a possible violation. With respect to the civil penalty and where it stands, staff would recommend that we leave the $1,000 unsuspended civil penalty in place. And finally, to note that I know Mr. Murphy has checks here today that he's ready to provide to us. We could certainly accept payment for the civil penalty, but we are trying to remain consistent with respect to the submittal of the annual fees, and we would ask that those be submitted in the same way that everybody else is currently doing that, electronically and online. I can work with our IT staff to ensure that when they log back in, they're able to complete the process. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Well, what's more important, or as important as the annual report of activity on the site?
I'm sorry?
Just as important as the fees is the annual report.
Absolutely, yes.
Activity on the site.
Correct. We want that information. We want a map, even knowing that there's been very little activity in the years past. That's still important information for the division to have in its record.
Yeah. And did you complete the last inspection of the site?
I did.
Yeah. And when was that done?
It was done in 2017.
Oh, pretty recently. Okay. And do you feel that the bond is adequate then?
The bond is adequate with respect to reclamation that needs to be done out there. The site is in good shape, and I feel that amount would easily cover it.
And it's closed.
The portal has a closure on it and it's locked to prevent unauthorized access.
So what is your recommendation at this point?
Recommendation would be for Mr. Murphy to provide the delinquent annual fees, reports, and maps, as well as the unsuspended civil penalty of $1,000.
And to reinstate the permit?
And reinstatement of the NOI, correct.
Daniel,
Just one.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Russ Means. And as Michael noted and stuff, it's important that this be done in the same manner that everybody else is doing that through the electronic filing system. And that way, actually, Mr. Murphy will be getting email notices from here on out that his annual fees and stuff are due. So the address issue and stuff would kind of take care of itself. But we have to be able to be consistent with everybody else that has permits and notices.
any other questions? All right, thank you. Close testimony and begin deliberations.
I move pending payment and submittal of annual reports, payment of the past due fees and annual report and the submission of annual reports and submission of the $1,000 penalty that the board reinstate the permit. This is reference to P-2012-011.
For a second,
I'll second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We will call item number 7, enforcement hearing. Anthony Blasey and Son Trucking and Earth Moving LLC, file number M202109. I'll swear you in when you're done asking. All right, everyone who will testify in today's hearing, can you please stand and raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth? Thank you.
My name is Eric Scott. I'll be representing the division in this matter. This is a enforcement hearing for M2002-109, the Charas Pit, operated by Blasey and Son. Straightforward. Failure to pay annual fees, submit reports and maps for 2017 and 2018. And as you can see on the presentation form, the chronology is there for you. We've had issues in the past with this operator, checking annual fees, reports, and maps on several sites. And the operator has apparently declined to join us for today's proceedings. So I will skip to the legal basis for the permit revocation and forfeiture of financial warranty, which was the operator was found to be in violation pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-116, parent 3A and B, and pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-124, parent 6A. Upon determination after hearing that a violation of permit provision has occurred, the board may suspend, modify, or revoke such permit. Pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-118-1B, a financial warranty is subject to forfeiture when the board determines that the operator is in default under a performance warranty and has failed to cure such default, although the operator has been given written notice and has ample time to do so. Failure to file the annual report and pay the annual fee constitutes a default under the operator's performance warranty.
And the operator was notified via certified mail on July 20th of this hearing. Therefore, the staff recommends that the board affirm violation number MV-2018-17 for failing to submit the required annual reports, maps, and fees for 2017 and 2018 in accordance with CRS 34-32.5-116, parent 3, parent A and B. Affirm the cease and desist order issued by the staff on July 20th. Affirm the civil penalty of $646 issued by the staff on July 20th, 2018. Order that permit number M-2002-109 be revoked, and pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-118, parent 2, direct the staff to notify the operator and all financial warrantors that the financial warranty is subject to forfeiture and of their right to appear at the hearing to consider whether the financial warranty or the permit should be forfeit. Questions?
I just have one. Have you heard from this operator at all?
I got a brief phone call and conversation with him about a week and a half ago. And discussed the matter with them, made them aware of this hearing and their opportunity to rectify the matter via the online payment and submittal process.
Okay.
And we've received nothing via that process, and he apparently has declined to have this hearing.
Michael Cunningham with the division. I just add on that Mr. Blasey had another site that was before the board here in May, and he did not show up for that one. I had been in communication with him. He was aware of the nature of the proceedings and made a decision not to show up. So I'm not sure where that leaves him with his operations, but it seems like he's letting them go and is not going to fight for revocation.
This is the second of 3 sites that will be in front of the board for this matter. We have one teed up for next month as well. Hoping that these will get his attention. We've been working so far.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Closed testimony. Board have a motion.
I move we affirm on M-2002-109. I move we affirm violation number MV-2018-017 for failing to submit required annual reports, maps, and fees for 2017 and 2018 in accordance with CRS 34-32.5-116, Pren 3, Pren A, and Pren B. Affirm the cease and desist order issued by staff on July 20th, 2018. Affirm the civil penalty of $646 issued by staff on July 20, 2018. Order the permit number M-2002-109 be revoked pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-118. Friend 2, direct staff to notify the operator and all financial warrantors that the financial warranty is subject to forfeiture and of its right to appear at a hearing to consider whether the financial warranty for the permit should be forfeited.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item number 8, enforcement hearing for Glenn Moultrer, file number M-2018-025. Anyone who will testify, can please stand and raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth. Thank you.
He's outside, put more money in the.
Okay.
Not Dean Moultrer.
Okay.
I can pass it out.
That's great.
Okay, can I just recommend one thing? I can't hear. I'm deaf in both ears pretty much, and he can't hear out of either one of you. So if you guys could speak up, I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. We will do that.
you.
Thank you. You want one for your brother? Sure. I'll let her know. Here's the division's presentation form.
Okay.
Thank you. There we go.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Elliot Russell with the division. Today's enforcement matter is in regards to Purgatory Valley Construction, Inc., the Purgatory Valley Construction Borrow Pit, which has been assigned permit number M-2018-025. This is an enforcement action regarding the failure to first obtain a reclamation permit from the Mine Land Reclamation Board prior to engaging in a new mining operation. To start with some chronology, on slide 2, the division received an anonymous complaint regarding an unpermitted mining operation on May 18th, 2018. The complaint stated that an operation was occurring 15 miles west of Trinidad, and material was being excavated and hauled 5 miles west of the location to a construction site at the Primero Junior-Senior High School. On May 31st, 2018, the division conducted an inspection of the site and met with Glenn and Ray Moulter. This operation was occurring in the Segundo and Valdez area of Colorado. The division observed approximately 0.64 acres of affected lands. Glenn and Ray had stated that they wanted to create a larger building pad, and they had removed approximately 1,000 cubic yards of material, and they were donating that material to the local school. They were constructing a gym at that school. They had stated that approximately 500 more cubic yards of material was needed at that construction site. After the inspection, the division and the Moulters traveled to the school, met with Steve Larson, the project superintendent with HW Houston, who had subcontracted with Purgatory Valley Construction, Inc. To construct a gym at that school. The Moulters had stated that material on site at the school was used to bring the construction project to grade. However, additional material was used from their property. The property of the excavation that was inspected, they had stated, was owned by Moulter Brothers LLC, company that they had owned. Following with the chronology, on June 15th, the division mailed the inspection report and a reason to believe a violation exists letter, scheduling the matter for the July 25th, 2018 board meeting. On June 25th, the division received a request for continuance from Glenn, and the division continued the matter to today. Slide 3 is just the location map of the state showing the red star. The proposed, or the location of the unpermitted operation is in west central Los Animas County. Slide 4 is a Google Earth snapshot showing the location of the operation by the white star in the middle. Segundo and Valdez areas are outlined. And to note, this is Highway 12 bisecting the middle of the slide, and then just south of there is the Purgatory River. Slide 5 shows the inspection report map, which was provided in the inspection report. This shows GPS collected information data on the operation, approximately 0.64 acres in size, and that is the red polygon. Additionally, the division estimated the size of a previous dig area in this location, approximately 0.44 acres. This area, Glenn Moulter had stated that the material was used as fill dirt on their property. The next several slides are inspection photos taken during the May 31st, 2018 inspection. This first image on slide 6 shows the excavation area and 2 stockpiles on either end. Here on the left side of photo and on the right side of the photo. Slide 7 shows another image. This is the western stockpile in the foreground and the eastern stockpile in the background, with the excavation area in the back right. Slide 8 shows a closer image of the eastern stockpile. The Moulters had stated that this stockpile contained too much rock and didn't meet the compaction spec needed at the construction site. And then slide 9 is just an image of that older dig area in the yellow polygon on the inspection report map. Slide 10 shows a image from the gym construction project. This shows various fill dirt being used to the right and in the foreground here. Note in the background that tan low-lying stockpile, the Moulters had stated they had purchased Class 6 aggregate from a local permitted mining operator for that material. I think they were using that material to weigh down a groundwater wicking system. Definitions, CRS 34, 32.5, 103, paren 13 defines the mining operation as the development or extraction of a construction material from its natural occurrence on affected land. Construction material is defined as rock, clay, silt, sand, gravel, limestone, dimensional stone, marble, and shale extracted for the use of the production of non-metallic construction products. Affected land is defined as the surface of an area within the state where a mining operation is being or will be conducted, which surface is disturbed as a result of an operation. Affected lands include land excavations. Prior to getting to the division's recommendations, I wanted to extend the chronology, discuss some prior history with Purgatory Valley Construction Incorporated, as well as Moulter Brothers LLC. So in 2005, the division received 2 complaints and inspected a site approximately 1 mile to the west of this current excavation. April 13th was the date of the inspection, and the division observed about an acre of an excavation area and a crusher and power screen. The material was being used to gravel and maintain roads on these individuals' property. So the material was not leaving the parcel. And as well as they were creating a gravel surface area for their construction yard on their property. The office recommended that the Moulters submit a "Is it mining?" questionnaire to receive a formal determination that this activity that received complaints was not mining. And on May 4, 2005, the office did make that determination that no permit was needed following the submittal of the questionnaire. A year later, in June 2006, the division received additional complaints and conducted a follow-up inspection on July 11th, 2006, and found that the disturbance exceeded the information provided in the "Is it mining?" questionnaire, and recommended the Moulters submit a mine reclamation permit for the activity or go to the come to the board to receive a declaratory order exempting them from the reclamation permit requirements. On September 13th, 2006, the board did approve the declaratory order exempting them the activities from the requirements of obtaining a reclamation permit. I bring this previous history up because it is important and relevant, as it shows that Purgatory Valley Construction Incorporated and the Moulter Brothers were familiar with the two processes available for individuals that may be conducting a mining activity or may be exempt from a mining activity. And this is that is it mining questionnaire process, as well as the petition for a declaratory order, of which the division has not received neither of those processes regarding today's hearing. The division's recommendations are to find the operator in violation of CRS 34-32.5-109(1) for failure to first obtain a reclamation permit from the Mineland Reclamation Board before engaging in a new mining operation. The division also recommends, pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123(1), issue an immediate cease and desist order prohibiting any further mining activities except those activities approved by the division in writing as necessary to prevent damage to offsite areas or to protect public health and safety until the corrective actions have been resolved to the satisfaction of the division. Division recommends the following corrective action. The operator shall file a complete 110C, 111-1B, or 112C reclamation permit application as appropriate within 90 days of the effective date of the board order and obtain approval of the application within statutory deadlines. Some background regarding the civil penalty. Pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123(2), an operator who operates without a permit shall be subject to a civil penalty of not less than $1,000 per day, nor more than $5,000 per day for each day the land has been affected, not to exceed 365 days. Pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123(4), the board shall also assess a civil penalty in the amount not less than the amount necessary to cover the costs incurred by the division in investigating the alleged violation. In this matter, the board could find 40 days of violation from the June 15th, 2018 RTB letter to the July 25th, 2018 originally scheduled board hearing, resulting in a range of civil penalty not less than $40,000 and not more than $200,000. Division spent 6 hours investigating the alleged violation, resulting in a total of $339.84 at a rate of $56.64 per hour. The board may suspend all or a portion of the civil penalty to encourage timely compliance with the corrective action, as well as compliance with the Act, rules, and regulations. The division recommends the board find a civil penalty pursuant to CRS 34-32.5-123(2) for 40 days and assess a civil penalty of $1,000 per day for a total civil penalty of $40,000. In addition, assess a civil penalty to cover the costs incurred by the division in investigating the violation at a rate of $56.64 per hour for 6 hours for a total penalty of $339.84. Assess a total civil penalty of $40,339.84 with all but $5,339.84 suspended if the operator complies with the corrective action. The portion of the civil penalty not suspended shall be due and payable within 30 days of the effective date of the board order. The operator does not comply with the corrective actions. A portion of the civil penalty suspended shall be due and payable. Failure to submit any due and unpaid civil penalties shall result in the immediate submittal of such penalties to state collections. With that, that concludes the division's presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you. At this point, we'll hear from the operator.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Dean Moulter. Give you a little brief history. This is the very first day that I've seen this. I'm with Purgatory Valley Construction, but I'm really not in day-to-day operations anymore. I'm have a government appointment that takes up most of my time. So, but I am familiar with this site, so that's why I'm here today. Give you a brief history about the site. My brother and I, Glenn, went to the local university or college, junior college there in the early mid 2000s. Before the statewide economic downturn, we've seen a need for jobs or for qualified individuals in like heavy equipment and welding, mechanics and stuff. So we had a college president that actually took the bull by the horns, took our suggestions. We put together a committee and we formed what we call the EPIC program. And so anyway, it took off and kind of grew by leaps and bounds. Governor Ritter mentioned it twice in his state address. It also gained national recognition. There was one catch to the whole thing when we got it going. We were very passionate about it, and so we assisted in getting it off the ground. So the college applied for a grant, and one of the specifications for the grant was to have some kind of in-kind matching. And so what we did is we basically donated this section of land, and we also donated 1 year of heavy equipment with fuel. And since there was not an instructor or a syllabus that was written, he nominated me to be the instructor and help write the syllabus. So anyway, that kind of got off the ground. So 99.9% of what you see in those pictures were, if you will, teaching and practice grounds for that program, which helped get the college the grant. What we had there was we have some industrial type structures in that area. And so therefore we had some areas that were flattened out there, built some steel buildings. There was one yard next to it. You can kind of see it in some of the photos. And that yard is fenced off. Well, the only area that we thought that needed that we could utilize for this was that area. It's flat now, but before that it was kind of hilly and kind of the topography was not even. So we went in there and we utilized that to teach the kids, and some of the older students were older folks too, but teach them. We used a dozer, motor grader, excavator, rubber tire, backhoe, skid steer. And so what was left there was with a high bank after. And then what we did is we ended up eventually finding grounds out by the Trinidad landfill that the college could utilize for their practice grounds, which left us with this very large flat area, but it had a high bank. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, we own roughly around 1,500 acres there. We do run some cows, care very deeply for the land. So we do a lot of reclamation projects on our property. The high bank being there, what we like to do is do some sloping there. So I'm You can interrupt me if you want, but.
Yeah, I'll take it from here. So that area that was already flattened by the teaching of these college kids out there, the reason we were flattening out was to put a building for the oil and gas industry. Well, the oil and gas industry obviously went south in 2008, 2009, especially in Trinidad. So we just kind of left it dormant. And then we're working with a vegetable grower type hemp, vegetables and hemp type greenhouse people that want to build greenhouses on there. So in order to do that, we wanted to get the area prepped for this greenhouse that's going to be built in there. We had this extra material that we would either had to put in a pile over there. We donated it to the school because they had to have a road built up in there for the safe zone for the fire department and first responders to get around there. Closest pit to Trinidad to get any material is 40 miles away. So we just donated it to them to build that area up there and save that money to put into some other project that we have up there. I did not know that you could. I knew I couldn't sell any material off of our property. I did not know that I couldn't donate anything off the property. Any projects that I've ever been on, Colorado Springs, you know, we've traveled quite a bit in the last few years because the economy down south was bad. They take from one project, this building's sitting on a foundation. That material has to go somewhere because they fill it with concrete. That guy over there might need a fill, and they just take it from one project to the other. That's always been standard practice in the construction industry. This guy needs to dispose of it. This guy needs it, and they just give it to that guy over there to build up his area or whatever. The school needed 1,000 yards or whatever it was that they hauled up there and to build up an area. And I says, you know, we're going to build a building here. We need to get this out of the way instead of putting it in a pile over there that does nobody any good. We'll just donate it to the school. And that's basically what we did. Since, can't even think of his name now, was up there, we have not touched that site. The site still looks the same. When he came up and looked at the site, we just didn't do anything with it. The extra material, unfortunately, I hauled from town and I had to charge the school for it, for what it cost me down there. The site looks the same today as it did when he took them pictures. I may be dumbfounded, but I did not know, and I've been told before, sitting in here, that if you do not sell your product, then it's not a violation. But now I find out that it's a violation. Somebody that was jealous that I was doing the work, I guess, turned this in, and all I was doing was trying to benefit the school district. That's all I was doing. He wasn't on that job, I was.
Yeah. Are there any questions?
You charge the school district for mileage, but not for,
I did not.
you said you charged them for something.
No. My kids, I graduated from that school. My kids, I did not charge them. I charged them for the gravel that we hauled from the gravel you saw on the building pad there. I did charge them for that. But this pit is actually only 6 miles from our school. And the project that you see there was my brainchild when I sat on the school board 5 years ago. So it's kind of like a baby to me. And I just figured that I'd donate that portion of it to the school. It didn't take me very long. It didn't take me 40 days to do that. It took me a couple of days when they needed it up there. So I did not charge them for it. I charged them for excavation on the job, and I charged them for the gravel that I hauled from Leone's pit, which is 40 miles away. I did not charge them
anything for that. And I'd be happy to have my bookkeeper send you the daily reports from down there. We did not charge them anything.
I think the idea was, he was a big proponent in passing the tax increase bond issue for this project. And the way he normally thinks is anything that we can donate or give, that's more money the school can actually put into the school. Is that what you were thinking?
My kids go to school. The more they can improve it.
So, it's not a gravel pit. It's not a dirt pit. It's not anything pit. It is what it is.
And it's a building site. We are going to put greenhouses. I'm actually meeting with the people on Saturday. I met with them last week, and I'm meeting with the guys that are going to erect it. So it is actually going to have a building on it. So it's not a mining operation in my eyes.
Board have any questions? All right, thank you. We'll hear from the division and then we'll deliberate.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Does the board have any questions for the division?
So what is the policy if it's donated versus sold?
So borrow pits are permitted in the state. We see them all the time. A lot of them are associated with 111 permits, like highway construction projects where road grade needs to be built up, and we do permit borrow pits. It's fill dirt. It's not mining, sand and gravel product, but just a quantity of material. In speaking with donation of material, that one of the issues that comes to mind is we do have permitted borrow pits, permitted mine sites that sell their overburden, and therefore, without requiring a permit on a site similar to this, the board has taken a stance before that these types of operations undercut the market, and therefore, somebody who has gone through the permitting process and the bonding process to sell fill dirt material, the market isn't fair at that point.
This is Russ Means for the division. I have a quick question for Mr. Mulder, either Dean or Glenn. Do you right now currently have a grading or building permit for this borrow area?
Do I have one?
Do you have a, yes?
No, because we have to go through an SUP. Once the people that want to build this building have the site and plans, I have to do an SUP through the county down there. So
Okay.
I do not.
Okay, thank you. One of the clarifications and stuff I want to make for the board is when there's a construction site that has a building permit, we know that that's going to be going to a beneficial use. And so the excess material from a construction site that's under permit generally does not require a permit. There are exceptions to that. So to be leveling off a site, taking that material for whatever purpose, introducing it into the market, donating it, whatever, if they're not under another permit, then that falls under us and stuff to ensure that that is brought back to a beneficial use. So it's always been kind of the policy, if you will, where the line is drawn there is if we're reviewing a isn't mining questionnaire or something along those lines and it has a permit in place, whether it's a local, a county or a state permit, then we back off of that because it's obviously incidental to the project. There's no guarantee. I mean, they say they're doing that, and there's no reason to doubt that. But at the time they were doing all this construction or excavation and everything else, it was in preparation for something that may or may not occur. And that's the point and stuff where we need to be ensure that we have a permit.
I'd like to add 3 things.
Not at the moment. We'll give you a chance in a second.
Okay, so from the images at the construction site, there was the Class 6 aggregate project produced from a permitted operator, which was bought by the subcontractor for the construction project of the gym. The subcontractor is Purgatory Valley Construction. Purgatory Valley Construction then used this material, this borrow fill dirt material from their property or their sister company, Moulter Brothers LLC's property, to haul this material in without buying it from a permitted operation. So it seems like there's a misunderstanding between sand and gravel product that is processed from a mine site versus fill dirt. Both of those entities are covered regulatory by our program. Just recently, the 111-1B permit went into effect. That 111-1B permit is for incidental construction material products. So if the Moulter Brothers want to continue this or just to permit it to reclaim the site, there is that opportunity where incidental material is produced at a site. So if you're building a pond, or in this case, you're building a building pad, and you have material that can be utilized off parcel, then that's where that activity would fall permit-wise. One last thing is this is a very similar operation as last month's hearing regarding the White Wolf construction, which is located just to the north of the highway. That was the operation that was discovered during the same inspection. That permit was found to be in violation. They were hauling material, constructing a building pad, and they were using that material for one of their construction projects in Trinidad. So just wanted to remind the board on that item. Are there any questions before we hand it back to the operator's testimony?
Thank you. All right, well, here's some short testimony from the operator.
Just for the record, you could go back to around 2006. That pad was level then, and the material was not hauled off. It was essentially just bulldozed and pushed and leveled off. To my knowledge, that is the first material that's ever left that site to this date.
I do have one more thing to say. I mean, we wouldn't do the work if I wasn't going to build a building. But what I hear him saying is, you know, if I wanted to be a bad operator, I can get around mine reclamation, and I can go to my local county building office and say, I want a building permit for this site, and I'll mine the hell out of it. And then I'll go to the building guy and say, I don't have the money to build. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You know, there's what he's saying is if there's a building permit, it's permissible. But to get around coming to you guys for a mining permit, it would be easy to go to the local building authority and say, I want a building permit for this 5 acres. I'm going to put up a house, and then never build a house.
The simple fact is it's not a mining operation. He simply donated some dirt to the school so they did not have to pay for it, to save them money. Essentially, it's a state entity. This site began to help the state get a $1.5 million grant. So that's how this whole site came about. It was into assistance to help them get a $1.5 million grant to save our college because they were talking about shutting it down at that time. It is still going today, and so is the EPIC program. So in my eyes, we have donated enough time and money on this site to the state. I know just $300,000 that year we spent in fuel cost to the program. So, plus my wages for a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before I close testimony?
I guess if under this new permit, the new, I don't know what the number is, the new little permit is if the beneficial use is a building pad, is there no reclamation?
The building is the reclamation. Yeah, so if